Saint Anthony was born in the small village of Coma in Middle Egypt around 250 AD. His parents were noble and wealthy Christians who raised him with faith and fear of God. The young Anthony did not love the noisy games of other children and despised worldly sciences. He left the house only to go to church, where he listened attentively to the Holy Scriptures. Around the age of 20, his parents died and left him master of the family estate and responsible for his younger sister. One day, he heard in church the gospel word urging one to sell his possessions and give them to the poor. Convinced that this word was addressed personally to him, he immediately distributed all his property to the poor. He kept only what was necessary for the care of his sister. When he heard once again the gospel word not to worry about tomorrow, he decided to definitively renounce the world. He entrusted his sister to virtuous people, abandoned his home, and devoted himself to the ascetic life. At that time, there were no monasteries yet, only some men of God who lived alone near their villages. Anthony settled in an isolated place where he worked with his hands and shared the surplus with the poor. He studied the sacred books and took care to maintain undisturbed prayer in his heart. Like a diligent bee, he visited every ascetic praised for his virtue and learned from each one humility, austerity, and devotion to prayer. The demon could not bear to see such zeal in such a young man and decided to fight him by every means. He first suggested to him the memory of the property he had left and the sister he had abandoned. He presented to him in a terrifying way the difficulties of the ascetic life, the weakness of his body, and the long struggle he would have to wage. When Anthony resisted with faith and unceasing prayer, the evil one attacked him with indecent provocations and one night transformed into a woman with provocative gestures. The brave soldier of Christ repelled Satan with the remembrance of eternal punishments. The demon then appeared in the form of a deformed child and acknowledged his defeat. The young ascetic was convinced that the victory did not belong to him, but to the grace of God dwelling within him. Anthony chose as his dwelling an ancient tomb, and Satan came to besiege him with an entire legion of demons who inflicted so many blows that they left him half dead. But as soon as he recovered, he asked to be returned to the tomb and continued to pray. The demons entered in the forms of beasts and reptiles, but the brave fighter repelled them with the sign of the cross and his faith. Finally, the Lord came to his aid, and a ray of light put the spirits of darkness to flight. Christ told him that he was always at his side, but wanted to watch his struggle. At the age of 35, Anthony withdrew alone into the desert east of the Nile. He found an old abandoned fortress and stayed there for 20 years in complete solitude, not allowing anyone to enter. Every 6 months, a friend would throw bread over the wall. Many, however, went there and heard from inside the voices of demons echoing furiously. One day, the visitors broke down the door and beheld the saint radiating as if emerging from a secret sanctuary, his appearance unchanged despite his hardships. From then on, Saint Anthony accepted disciples and founded 2 monasteries near the Nile. With a peaceful heart and mind fixed on God, he had the power to reconcile enemies by his presence alone and to heal the sick through prayer. He taught his disciples not to let trials discourage them, but to increase their zeal as if starting fresh each day. He told them that virtue requires only our will, because it is found within us and is acquired by us. Thanks to Saint Anthony, the desert was transformed into a city filled with monks who had renounced the world to imitate the angelic life. All these communities resembled temples where people united in harmony lived with psalmody, fasting, and prayer. When Maximinus Dia drowned Alexandria in blood with a merciless persecution, Anthony came there and ministered to the confessors in prisons and in the mines. But God had reserved other struggles for him, and he was not arrested. He returned to his monastic community, where he continued the bloodless martyrdom of conscience and doubled his ascetic rule. The saint withdrew even deeper into the desert to Mount Colzim near the Red Sea, 3 days away from the Nile. There he devoted himself without distractions to contemplation, and his mind remained unshakable like Mount Zion. His face radiated such brightness of purity that all who saw him were drawn to him. All of Egypt considered him a father and physician, and even Emperor Constantine the Great with his sons wrote letters to the humble monk as to their father. Greek philosophers came to visit him with contempt, but the man of God shook their arrogance with a few words. When the followers of Arius spread the rumor that the hermit shared their heresy, the saint did not hesitate to come to Alexandria and publicly confess his faith in the divinity of the Son and his support for Saint Athanasius. At the age of 105 years, he peacefully surrendered his soul to God on the 17th of January, 356. He bequeathed his garments to Saint Athanasius and Saint Serapion, and his sheepskin to his 2 disciples. His fame as father of monks spread throughout the whole world, and his life offers a perfect model for all who desire the perfection of the Christian life.